These last 2 weeks have been the most important weeks of my life. Friends, memories, bonds, smiles, laughter, crying, and everything else were shared between me and some of the best people I've ever met in my life. I marched alongside a group of talented musicians, coming together to create something beautiful and memorable. We performed in front of an unimaginably large crowd, made history, and showed the world what we can do. For those of you who have no clue what drum corps is, think of it as a marching band with higher expectations. It's not run through a school, nor is it something everyone will have a chance to do. Lots of corps are extremely cutthroat and hard to enter, while some are just starting and want as many people to join as possible. The group I just marched with is the Boise Gems, and we just had our first ever year. It was amazing. I've never really formally introduced myself on this channel, but hello, I'm Chris. I used to make videos about Rainbow Six, but stopped when my interest in video games died out. My interest in a lot of other things kind of died out as well. Working 2 full-time jobs and not eating the best really puts a toll on you. But about this time last year, I had a friend, Austin, reach out to me. He asked me to put together music for a drum corps that he was starting. Bruh, no way. That's all I could think of. Dude, what? The passion that he had and the drive that was in him really gave me hope that he could really start the group. Now, starting a drum corps isn't exactly an easy process, and Austin can tell you that for sure. You need the right connections, the right funding, locations, housing, food, music, and people willing to join. He knew all the risks and went ahead with it anyways. The Boise Gems. The gem representing the state Star Garnet with their first show, Esther Perpetua, whose namesake, Let It Be Perpetual, is the state's motto. I was tasked to write Esther Perpetua and make it a show that will be remembered by everyone who came and saw it. It needed to be something amazing. Most corps used music that was already written, but their composer or arranger would take that music and turn it into something that would fit the theme of their show. Austin and I sat down at our computers, 425 miles away from one another, discussing what we were going to use music-wise. My college had just finished playing The Promise of Living by Aaron Copland, so we thought that would be a perfect ballad to use. We then had a few other song ideas to use for the opener and the closer of the show. In the end, we decided to go with original music for everything except for the ballad, because it's public domain and can be easily used. I got writing. Rewrite after rewrite, not liking what I put to the page too much. I was also extremely busy, working 2 full-time jobs and not having any days off. The only time I could write was after 6 p.m. when I finally got home, exhausted from either a 10 or 12-hour shift. Eventually, things started coming together. I had my first version of the opener, and oh boy did I try to make it as fun as possible. I jokingly said I wanted to march, but the age limit for a junior drum corps is 21 and I am 23. But luckily, this drum corps isn't a junior drum corps, but rather an all-age DCI sound sport. I was ready to join. I live far away from Boise, about 7 hours by car, but I love road trips, so I didn't mind it. It gives me time to reflect and think about everything I'm about to do. I knew I was going to be an example in this corps, having already marched 3 years previously in a different corps and already graduating college with a music degree. I had a lot of experience and advice I could give, so I prepared myself to do that. I showed up, and to my relief, I was not the oldest one there. A 38-year-old trumpet player was present, and oh boy did he sound good. Sadly, he didn't continue on with the corps, but it was still good to see other older people there. While working on the show, one of my full-time jobs laid off my entire shift, so I now had loads of free time. Loads of freedom. It was time to continue writing. Right after the first camp, I got started on the closer, something that was supposed to be huge, something that would wow the audience and get them excited to see future Gems shows. But before I began writing, I received a text that would haunt me for the next 7 months. Yo, check the copyright of The Promise of Living. Yeah, I was wrong about it being public domain. You see, music laws are kind of stupid in the United States. Music is only in the public domain 70 years after an artist's death. Aaron Copland passed away in 1990, making the piece not available to the public domain until 2060. That's unless copyright laws change again and the time is extended even further. Whatever the time may be, it will be quite a while until I get to use his music in public domain. Instead, we contacted the copyright holders hoping to be able to arrange the piece and perform it, even if a licensing fee was required. I received an email saying I had permission to arrange the piece and to send it over when it's finished so they can take a look and make sure it's Gucci. The requirements were a new one-to-one arrangement with the exact same melodies, harmonies, and rhythms as the original. So that's what I, along with Josh Russell, our front ensemble guy, and Brendan Williams, our percussion caption head, did. We put together a really nice arrangement of Copeland's piece and were very excited to use it, and very proud of it. Well, for any future composers or arrangers out there, let me give you a very big and stern warning. Copyright management is the worst thing on the planet. After sending them an email with a rendered MP3 and the score, we heard nothing. Absolutely nothing was returned to us. No yes, no, just nothing. Absolute radio silence. After about 2 weeks of nothing, I emailed them again saying, "Yo, did you receive the arrangement?" Radio silence was given once more. Austin and I both called the company in charge of the Copeland estate, hoping to get answers, and we got nothing. Then began our campaign of sending several emails and calls each week in hopes to get some sort of response. We never got anything. We ended up cutting the hard work me and the other arrangers did for the piece. It really was an absolutely gorgeous rendition of Copeland's works, and we would have loved to use it, but sadly we didn't get a chance. So once more for your composers, request copyright extremely early advanced, well before you even think of using it for sure in your music. Another corps had the same exact issue with the same company, and they ended up having to rewrite their closer because of it. Copyright sucks, and this was a very hard lesson to learn. The Promise of Living was supposed to be the main part of the whole show. Each melody I used for the show was some sort of callback back to Copeland's piece. Whether it was similar rhythms, similar intervals, or structures, it was all directed towards Promise of Living. Luckily, what I wrote for the other movements was so far away from the Promise of Living that it's classified as its own piece and doesn't require any copyright permissions. In fact, most people thought one of the main melodies of the show was from Super Mario Galaxy rather than anything else, so I was fine. The show was eventually finished. The closer was made to be very powerful and very, oh man, Austin didn't like it too much. Yeah, the end of the closer was a bit lame and repetitive. I tried to go for something that was structured similarly to a show I marched before in the past, but it just wasn't that impactful. Instead, I was shown a clip of a different drum corps from several decades ago. High brass were sustaining, mellophones were playing a repeated strong chime-like pattern, and low brass were blasting rhythmic dissonant chords, leading into a series of moving chords arriving to the big final major chord. Good composers borrow, and great composers steal, so I stole the same structure as that. Of course, my mellophone melody, dissonant chords, and moving chords were all extremely different. The moving chords were pretty wild, with the penultimate chord being a polychord, which is where two different keys are used at the same time. It created a ton of tension to the final E-flat major chord, and then once more, another huge and loud E-flat major chord. This was it, the closer that would get people cheering and excited. Let's make people witness history. Our tour was very small. The structure of most corps include one camp every month, lasting from 1 to 3 days, and then sometime in late spring or early summer, spring training, where they rehearse for roughly 12 hours a day for 1 to 6 weeks. Spring training is usually what people find to be the most grueling part of drum corps, but honestly, it's my favorite. That's where friendships are made, the show is learned, and where you get to have an understanding of the vibe of the season. It is, in my opinion, the hardest part of drum corps, but definitely the most fun. We only had a week to learn the entire show, so that meant we had to be on our A game and focus up. I was extremely impressed with how well we were able to learn the show and put it out on the field. Most of our trumpet players weren't actually trumpet players, but rather woodwind players, yet by the third day of spring training, we were sounding loud and strong. There was a very important pivotal moment that day where a brass caption head asked, "Where did this horn line come from?" From there, we knew we could blow people away. As the only one marching that has had prior experience doing drum corps, I knew I had to help out as much as I could. I wanted to be as positive as possible and let people know that they were welcome and doing a great job, because they definitely were. The show we learned wasn't easy by any means. I made sure to make the music fun, engaging, but also pretty challenging. The drill designed by Austin was no easy thing either. Many sets were hard to get to, especially while playing on the move. You have to understand that we're not walking from set to set, but we're marching, with a technique that's supposed to look good, but also supposed to make us sound good as we're playing. The cost of the technique is that it's extremely physically demanding. And when moving around like this while playing, we don't get to breathe like we can when we're normally moving around. On top of that, these instruments are heavy. Even trumpets and mellophones, who only have to hold up roughly a pound of brass, struggle because we don't normally have our arms up like this. If you think I'm talking nonsense, hold up your arms in this position right here for 3 to 5 minutes and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now imagine having to do that for the majority of the day. Going through struggles together breeds friendship and love. I have nothing but kind words for everyone who I got to go on this journey with. Some of the amazing musicians who I got to be with moved on to march for bigger corps. One of the best moments I got to witness was going to the Tri-Cities, where I was an alum for the Columbians Drum and Bugle Corps, and got to show them what Austin, who was also an alum, and I put together. It was a wonderful feeling. Right after our performance, the Seattle Cascades, a bigger world-class corps, arced up with us, where we got to perform an arrangement I made of the final countdown. Last year, I was someone who hasn't written anything from drum corps, and now this year I'm officially a DCI arranger who has written for the Boise Gems and for the Seattle Cascades. It truly is an unreal feeling, and to anyone who has talked with me for the last few days, all I can really talk about is what I got to go through. I returned home a few days ago, and since then, I've had more drive and energy than I've had in an extremely long time. This is a call to everyone watching this video. Make music an important part of your life. Learn to sing, learn an instrument, struggle with others to learn how to put something musical together, learn how to march, make connections with others. I promise you the happiest moments of your life will be when you're surrounded by these amazing people. And I promise you that nothing but good things will happen if you march drum corps. If you haven't seen what drum corps is like before, I highly suggest looking at some amazing corps. Search Blue Devils 2017 or Santa Clara Vanguard 2018 to see some of the magic I'm talking about. Also, if you can, please do donate to the Boise Gems. Link is in the description. We want to continue our mission of creating amazing shows and teaching great music and life skills. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've marched in the past, please let me know about it in the comments below. Esther Perpetua.